Perfect.
We are on. We are Zoom.
One,
Thank you, Facebook. Thank you, people on Zoom. We appreciate it. And let's go, Marty. Give us the good news. Give us the story.
thank you so much, Racheli, and hello, everybody out there. First, I want to thank you so much for having me on today. And I wanted to, before I just quickly talked about how our office can work with you all to help our Broward community, I first wanted to thank you. You know, you all have given me the great privilege of serving in a number of capacities. I got to serve in the Florida House of Representatives. I got to serve in the county commission. I got to be the county's mayor, and now I get to be our property appraiser. And I can tell you, of all the jobs I've ever had, this one I love the most by far because you get to interact with everybody in the county and you get to help people. And here's the big difference. When I served in the state legislature, I loved it. You got to debate education and healthcare and help make the state better. But you were so far away from the people, you didn't really get to meet all the people you were helping. When I was on the county commission or the county's mayor, you get to make the port better and the airport better. And you get to help make Broward County really strong economically. But you're still so far away from the people, you don't get to meet the people you're really helping. Property appraiser is the greatest job alive because all day, every day, you're doing constituent services. You help seniors and veterans and people with their property. Is the type of job that when I go home and I put my head on my pillow, I feel like I did something really good that day. And I just appreciate so much y'all allowing me to do it. And I especially love realtors and people in the real estate community because you all, as I said just before, are our windows to the world. I cannot tell you the amount of people that we get to help because their real estate agent or their mortgage broker just basically sent them our way and said, they need homestead, they need portability. I mean, out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of people we help every single year, a big percentage are because you all took the time to send people our way and we're able to help them. And so, and it helps me help people I can't reach on my own. And so I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And if I'm talking too fast, I've had 5 cups of coffee, 2 Red Bulls, and a Diet Coke. I'm a little wired, so I do apologize. And I also tell people if politics doesn't work out, I'd be a great auctioneer. So I got that going for me. But with that said, there are 3 main functions to our office. The first function, as you know, Racheli. Oh, the first function is we determine the value of every piece of property in Broward County for tax purposes, whether it's residential, commercial, tangible personal property, or centrally assessed property, which are railroads. And the reason that's important is because when you pay your property taxes, the amount of taxes you pay is a relation between the value of the property that we set and the tax rate set by your local government. So the higher the value of the property, the more taxes people pay. The lower the value of the property, the lower amount of taxes they pay. So the most important thing we want to do is just make sure we get it right. And Broward County, as I said before, is a huge place. More people live here than 13 states, the District of Columbia, and all U.S. territories except Puerto Rico. It is big. And even though the people in our office do a very, very good job and their assessments are very accurate, mistakes can occur, or maybe people have information about the value of their property that we don't have that could help us bring down their market value, which could bring down their assessed value, which could bring down their property taxes. And right now is the best time for me to come and talk with people because over the last couple of weeks, every single person in Broward County that owns property got a letter from me in the mail. That was the truth and millage notice. It's not a tax bill. It's basically a document so people can make sure they don't overly pay in their property taxes. And it says a whole lot of cool stuff. It shows the value of your property for tax purposes, all the tax saving exemptions they're currently getting. It shows the dates and times that the local governments are going to be discussing their tax rates. It shows and it also shows the proposed amount of property taxes that people are asked to pay for this year. And I always tell everybody when you get that document, if you review it or you go on our website at bcpa.net, open up your property, you can also click on your trim notes and view it there. If you have any concerns, call me, email me by September 18th of this year. Come to our office, we'll come to you and we can go through your property. And if we can adjust it down, we always will. And let me just give you an example where we helped somebody recently. We helped actually all the time where I helped somebody recently. One person called me a couple days ago, actually maybe yesterday, and the person basically said, Marty, I understand how you value property. I understand that you look at January 1st of the tax bill and a tax year, and when my November tax bill comes out is what was the property on January 1st, 2023? And they go, I also know how you valued my property because I've owned my property for some time, that you looked at all the comparable properties in my neighborhood that sold the year before, you adjusted them, and that's how you determine a value for my property. But they told me my property is different, and there are things about it that you don't know. It has a lot of water damage. It's very dilapidated, and I have all kinds of information that can show that it's much less valuable than these properties you used. And so they actually sent us their pictures of their home. They sent us their insurance claims. They actually showed us documentation that allowed us to adjust their value significantly downwards to where I think their property tax bill is going to drop by about 40%. They did that. And that's what we do. We just want to make sure that people only pay on their fair share of value. So if you know anybody who thinks that we valued their property too high, give us a holler. The key is your market value has to drop below your assessed value to receive a reduction. But let us go through it. We just want to make sure that when your November tax bill comes out, that you only pay on your fair share of value. The second thing we do, and this is what I love most about my job, is we give tax saving exemptions to people that qualify. And there are a lot of exemptions under Florida law that people qualify for. The most important one by far is a homestead exemption. If somebody lives here in Broward County, it's their primary residence, and where they're registered to vote. If they don't vote, where their declaration of domicile, where their car is registered to. If this is where they live and they raise their family, they're entitled to that very important exemption. And the homestead exemption does two things. The first thing it does, it takes $50,000 of value off the tax roll they no longer pay taxes on. Can save them at the beginning, I would say 500, 600, maybe $1,000 a year, depending on the local tax rates. But most importantly, the homestead exemption really protects them going forward, because every year thereafter, the value they're taxing cannot go more than a maximum of 3% or the consumer price index, whichever is lower. And that is so important right now, because you all are in the real estate community. You know as what has happened to property values over the past few years. They have skyrocketed because people are coming from all over the world and they're paying top dollar for properties. They're paying a lot more money for properties today than they were just a few years ago. And so I always tell everybody, if you lived on your property on January 1st of this year and you don't have a homestead exemption anywhere else, file for homestead, because it'll make sure the value you're taxed on won't go up more than 3%, and it won't skyrocket with the market value based on what all these other people are paying for properties that are similar to yours. Once you get that, there's so many other exemptions. Some are very large, some are very small, and you can stack the exemptions to reduce your tax bill. Examples of very large ones would be for totally permanently disabled veterans. If somebody's 100% totally permanently disabled veteran, they're fully exempt from taxes. If somebody's not 100% but combat disabled, they get a percentage reduction in their taxes that correlates to whatever their disability percentage is. And if not 100% not combat disabled, but still a disabled veteran, they still get a big reduction in their taxes. Same for first responders. If somebody's 100% totally permanently disabled first responder, fully exempt from taxes. And it also applies to their surviving spouses. So if somebody came to you and said, oh yeah, my wife was a member of the military, we lived in California, and unfortunately, she passed away as a result of her service, or she was 100% disabled as a result of her service. They're moving to Florida. They are actually fully exempt from paying property taxes. And I always tell everybody, if you hear anything like that, give me a call and we'll send you an email back saying, okay, if she provides this specific documentation to us, or he provides that, the year after property resets, they'll have no property taxes. That can go a long way in helping make sure somebody can afford a property, and also for you all to make a sale. Also, if somebody's a widow, they're entitled to an exemption. If they're visually impaired, they're entitled to an exemption. There's a lot of exemptions. And I always tell everybody, please go on our website at bcpa.net, click on exemptions. And if there's something they're not getting, contact me by September 18th, and we'll make sure they're reflected in your tax bill. So you pay only your fair share and not too much. The other thing I wanted to quickly talk about before I jumped into fraud was something you brought up just before, Racheli, and you spoke about portability, about transferring the value that you don't pay taxes on. Portability is so very important, and I cannot tell you how many people we get to help because their real estate agents send them our way after they purchase a new property. Portability gives people the opportunity to move from one home and to another home and not be taxed out of that home. And here's the way it works. When you bought your property, you filed for homestead. And when you did that, the value you're taxed on could not go more than a maximum of 3%. So over time, the market value of your property gets higher, but your assessed value stays lower. You have all this value in between you don't pay taxes on. If you now decide you want to buy a home of equal value or greater value, you can move up to $500,000 of value, whatever you've accumulated, to your new property and not pay taxes on. It's like moving a $500,000 house and not paying taxes. If you buy a home of lower value, you take a percentage of it, and you can still save thousands of dollars a year on your property taxes. I always tell everybody, go to our website at bcpa.net, use our portability estimator, and if you know the purchase price of your new property, you can type in those numbers and see what your taxes will be with portability and without portability the year after it resets. Based on this year's tax rates, you can really make sure you can afford the property. And let me just give you a real world example where it helped people move from Weston to Fort Lauderdale. There was a couple that lived in the city of Weston, and they actually bought their home in Weston Hills when Weston Hills was built decades ago. And this is actually when a Weston Hills home was affordable for a young couple starting out in life. It's not anymore, but at that time it was. And they bought it. And then they filed for homestead. And then what occurred was every year thereafter, the value they're taxing couldn't go up more than 3%. So over time, their market value got much, much higher, and their assessed value was lower. All they really wanted to do, they're now empty nesters. Their kids went to Cypress Bay High School and the University of Florida. They're empty nesters. All they wanted to do was sell that property and move to a condo in downtown Fort Lauderdale, but they were very afraid they couldn't afford the property taxes in Fort Lauderdale. And so we looked at their property, and the market value of their Weston home at the time was right about $900,000, but their assessed value was $400,000 because of that cap. They had the full $500,000 of value they weren't paying taxes on. What they did was they sold their Weston home and they bought a new condo in downtown Fort Lauderdale for right about $900,000. We moved the full $500,000 of value they weren't paying tax on to their Fort Lauderdale condo, which dropped their assessed value to $400,000, which basically meant that their property taxes in Fort Lauderdale were very similar to what they were in Weston. They were actually able to afford it and they love it. And they're so happy. They actually call me every once in a while. Hey, Marty, I'm at YOLO's or something. We're loving it down here. It's a great, great thing. And what a lot of people don't always remember is not only does portability help you the first year, so let's say it saves you $10,000 the first year, it saves you $10,000 every year thereafter. So over 5 years, you've saved basically 50 grand on a house like that. That's how awesome portability is. The key is you have to use it within 3 tax years. And for our purpose, the tax year starts on January 1st. Right now, it's almost September. So if somebody sold their home today, they would only have about 2 years and just a couple months to establish your new homestead for portability. You can move up to $500,000 of value, and you can use it anywhere in the state of Florida as many times as you want, but you can only have one homestead exemption. That's basically what you're transferring. So you can transfer that as many times. The other thing I wanted to quickly bring up before oh, yes, of course, Racheli, definitely.
I want to ask you, because this came up yesterday on a conversation. The person had a condo that he bought, after 2008, the crash. So he bought it very cheap. He lived there until October of 2021. And he's buying a new house. Can he still take that to the new house?
Oh, yes. So basically, did you say, so he only bought a property in 2008. It crashed. Has it been his homestead since 2008?
Yes, until October 2021.
October 2021. Ooh, he needs to do it fast. So when did he buy his new property?
He's buying it this coming month.
He's in good shape. So let me just think about this in my head. It's 3 tax years. So January 1, 2021 would have been when it started. So that first tax year is done, then 22. Now it's 23. Yes, he needs to be in there by December 31st of 2023, and then he's able to have his portability value moved. If he actually bought his, let's say he moved in and closed on January 1st of 2024, he would be time barred. So he's just going to make it, which is so important. Absolutely. So what'll happen is
excited.
Oh, I think it's Racheli, what he needs to do is as soon as he so what'll happen is as soon as he closes, he can actually pre-file for homestead for next year. And that's also when we'd be applying the portability. So, but as long as he's in the property and he considers it his homestead, basically this year in 2023, he should be good to go.
Yeah.
Devis, I hope that helps.
That's excellent. Yeah, I love it. And I'm glad to hear that it's the higher amount that basically you port, not the lower amount.
So it's so it depends. If you port whatever the difference is that we have between your market and your assessed value, if it's a home of equal or greater value, so you take that a whole difference. If it's a home of lower value, you take a percentage of it, but it can still be very significant depending on the difference in the cost, but it can still save a lot of money. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome. And Racheli, if you'd like, on that specific situation, I'm just in my mind, just making sure that, yes, it is. So 21 is when it would have started. So I think he's good. 22 and now it's 23. Yes. If you'd like, if you want to email me as well, the address and this and that, we can make sure we ting that in our system as well to make sure that everything works out well for him.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Oh, great.
Carol,
Excellent.
I know your question. I see it on the chat. We'll answer. We'll ask Marty that one as soon as he's done talking about this subject, and then we're going to go to the title fraud.
Awesome. So actually, I'm good with this unless you want me to move on to title fraud. Is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about with this?
Our question is about title fraud.
It is. Oh, okay. So I'll jump in there. Thank you so much, and thank you, Racheli, for letting me talk about this. Unfortunately, South Florida is the title fraud capital of the world. It's the capital of the world because you have criminals. That's what they are. Actually, real fast, Racheli. Hey, Scotty, are you on here? I think.
So, yeah, I'm here.
Scotty, can you just make sure for me on Racheli's question about her client who relinquished their homestead in 2021, that if they this year close in their property, that they'll be eligible for the portability? Would you just double check that? I'm going to jump into this,
Mm-hmm.
but if you could, that would be great. Maybe go ask
And just to
Kelly, the director of
confirm,
HSA.
they removed their homestead in 21.
Yes, October
Yes.
21.
October
Yes.
20.
So,
Okay. I'm gonna
so
go
go
take care of
find.
that right now, Marty.
Thanks, Scotty. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
He'll get
What?
right back on that. No, thank you, Racheli. You're awesome. So South Florida is the title fraud capital of the world. It's the capital of the world because you have criminals. That's what they are. They file fake deeds on people's properties, and they take those deeds and they try to extort people for money or mortgage rent or sell the property. They do it all the time. And the reason it's so easy for them is the recording division for every county has a ministerial duty. They have to accept whatever documents filed with them. So you have these criminals, they walk in, they file a fake deed, and they do something nefarious with it. So the first thing we wanted to do was give the people of Broward County the opportunity to fight the fraud before the fraud occurs. And 2 years ago, we came up with a great program called Owner Alert. We spend no taxpayer dollars developing it, and it's actually free to the public. And it's really a notification system to let people know if any document, legitimate or not, has been filed changing ownership in their property. And anybody can sign up this way. They can go to our website at bcpa.net, or they can go to our mobile friendly website, web.bcpa.net. They click on Owner Alert, and you type in your name, you type in your parcel ID number, which you can easily grab from our website, and you type in your email address. And if we have your email address on file, you're automatically verified. If we don't, you have to upload your Florida driver's license or Florida ID. If you don't have that, you have to upload a utility bill or something proving ownership. And then if any document, legitimate or not, is filed changing ownership in your property, you'll be notified instantaneously. So you can work with our office, make sure that somebody can't take a mortgage on your property, sell your property, rent your property, and we can actually try to hold the people accountable that are trying to defraud you of your property. We've had about 211,000 Broward County property owners sign up so far for an email alert. And a couple months ago, we actually rolled out a text message component, and we've had thousands upon thousands of people sign up for a text message as well, which is the fastest way. And then there are people in Broward County that actually don't have access to email or may not want a text message. They can actually get a hard copy in the mail. And what happened was about 2 years ago, when we rolled this out, I started getting phone calls and contacted by residents. And the residents would say, Marty, I got an alert from your office that somebody has filed changing ownership of my property, but I didn't make that filing. I didn't file that deed. And then I got more and more and more. And I realized how big of a deal it was. So I want to do something a little bit different. And I wanted to try to hold the people accountable that are doing this. And so I came up with an idea where I called the Department of Revenue, which oversees all property appraisers. And I said, listen, this is what's happening in Broward County. I want to work with law enforcement, build criminal cases, and put people in jail who are doing this. Can I do it? And I gave them a lot of heartburn. And they basically said, Marty, you're a property appraiser. You determine the value of property and give exemptions. You're not law enforcement. But we understand that this is a big deal for South Florida and the rest of the state. So you'll be the guinea pigs for the rest of the state. I go, great. So they approved what we coined as our crimes against property team. And so then what I did was I went to the county commission and I said, who funds our budget? And I said, county commission, the Department of Revenue they approve of this. And I would love it if you all could provide some more funding to our office so that we can dedicate some of our employees to work with law enforcement, build criminal cases, and hold these people accountable. And the county commission was an incredible partner. They said, absolutely, Marty. They provided the funding. So that's how our crimes against property team was formed. The next thing I did is I went to the sheriff of Broward County, who's my friend, Sheriff Tony, and I said, Sheriff, I would love to work with you and build criminal cases. Can we do that against these people? And the sheriff said, Marty, not only will we enter into an interlocal agreement to work together, but I'm going to assign sheriff's detectives to work with you to be housed within your office, that where you can actually do the work of law enforcement and actually really hold these people accountable. Then I went to the state attorney, Harold Pryor, who prosecutes people. And he's also my friend. And I said, Harold, the sheriff and I, we're going to work together and we're going to build these criminal cases. If we bring you some of these cases and you think they're prosecutorial, will you prosecute these people? And he goes, Marty, not only will we enter into an interlocal agreement to work together, but I'm going to assign an assistant state attorney to work with your office to actually prosecute the bad actors that are doing these actions. And I go, great. And that's how our crimes against property team was formed. And so right now it consists of our director, who at one point was second in command of the sheriff's office. He's actually an employee of our office now. We have 4 non-sworn former law enforcement employees with significant investigatory experience. We have 2 Broward Sheriff's detectives. We have a Fort Lauderdale detective, and we have a Town of Davie Reserve detective and support staff. And we've been really working hard over the past year since this was approved to build criminal cases, and we've been successful in holding people accountable. We've actually so far have had this past year about 20 arrests. We've had a number of convictions. We have a number of open warrants. There's actually a few people about to be arrested very, very soon. We've been able to stop the fraudulent sales of millions of dollars of properties, and we're able to recover millions of dollars of properties that have been stolen, and have worked with the court system to return those quickly to the people that they were stolen from. And let me just give you 3 fast examples just to show you how smart the people are that do this, and what our office is doing to try to protect the public with our crimes against property team. And I'd like to talk about these examples. There are 3 of many of them, just because each one is a little bit different, but it shows the extent they'll go to try to defraud the people of Broward County. And the one thing before I talk about this that everybody has to understand, the one common denominator about the people that do this is they are the smartest people. They're the type of people that if they did something legitimate, they'd be very successful. Instead, they make their money by defrauding people out of their properties and defrauding small businesses out of mortgages and things of that nature. And the first example I want to give involved a married couple. You had 2 wives. One of the wives worked for one of our hospital districts, and the other wife worked in the real estate industry. The wife that worked in one of our hospital districts would find out when people would pass on. She would then take their confidential information, including their social security numbers and other identifying information, and give it to her wife in the real estate industry, who would find out they had property in Broward County and had heirs here. If they had property and no heirs, they'd file fake deeds on the properties. They'd sell the properties on Zillow, mortgage the properties, rent the properties. They profit in the amount of, I believe, millions of dollars, but something I'm very, very happy about. Even they were found guilty, and even though they're a married couple, they're spending their time in different prisons, which I think is a good thing. Another example happened, with a man who hasn't yet been convicted, but I believe he will be. He was arrested. This man was not from Broward County; he was from Miami-Dade County, and he somehow found out that there was a senior that had a 5-acre parcel of property in Southwest Ranches, all free and clear. And he also somehow found out, from my understanding, that this senior was a sick senior who was bedridden. And what he did was he decided to file a fake corporation with Tallahassee. He then made the officer and director of the corporation the sick man. He then filed a fake deed saying the corporation owned the property. He then made a fake ID saying he was the sick man who was the officer and director of that corporation. He then walked into a small business in the city of Sunrise, a mortgage company, and basically said, hey, you know what? I've fallen on some hard times, made some bad financial decisions, but I do have this one thing, a 5-acre parcel, free and clear. Can I please have a $500,000 mortgage? And the mortgage company said, sure, we'll give it to you. And this is where they really should have realized that if something fishy was going on. The closing for a $500,000 mortgage for a 5-acre parcel in Southwest Ranches took place at a Burger King in Hialeah. So at the Burger King in Hialeah, you have the bad guy trying to get the money. You have the mortgage company not doing their due diligence, and you have the smartest person in the room, the notary. And the notary's looking at this thinking, this is very bizarre. And she asked for the guy's thumbprint. She then contacted our office. We contacted the Town of Davie Police Department because they police Southwest Ranches, and we contacted the U.S. Secret Service because they handle most of the identity theft cases in America. And then, fortunately, the man was arrested. Unfortunately, he was given the full $515,000 mortgage. He spent about $80,000. We recovered the rest. One other example I just wanted to bring up that it happened recently, where we had 3 people arrested, and I believe a few more are about to be arrested, is people that actually came up with a very brilliant but devious scheme. They decided to use the court system to steal people's properties. And so you had the 2 ringleaders, and the 2 ringleaders would file quiet title actions in circuit court, basically lawsuits in circuit court. And they would basically say, this senior or this person or this bank no longer wants the property. And then the answer, the return of service for the answer would go to the guy's buddy who was in a mobile home in Hillsborough County. And he would say, oh yeah, I represent that bank. I represent that senior. I represent that person. Yeah, they don't want the property anymore. Please put in this other guy's name or his company's name. And they stole so far at least 20 properties that we found throughout Broward County. We tend to find more every single month. And 3 of them have been arrested. Like I said, others I think are about to be arrested. And I learned a few things from this specific case. What I learned first was that even though the homeowner is a victim, they're one of the victims, the community can also be victimized as well when somebody steals a property. And in one of those situations, in one of the properties that they allegedly stole, they moved all their buddies into this property, a whole bunch of people into it. And while they were in there, right about 3, I think, or 4 in the morning one night, one of their buddies walked out of the property, went to a neighboring property, tried every single door that was there until they found one that was open, walked into these people's homes, and was standing over the bed of the husband and wife. God knows what they were going to do. Fortunately, the wife woke up, started screaming, there's somebody in the room. The dog chased the guy out. He was then arrested for breaking and entering, burglary, given an ankle monitor, let go, and he went right back to the stolen house. So recently we actually worked with Fort Lauderdale to remove the people from that house, and he was one of them. And then I learned something else that was new. Not only is the property owner a victim, not only can the community be a victim, but also the people that are in the house can be a victim as well. Because when they're living in these properties that were stolen, sometimes there's no utilities, there's no electricity. The conditions are really, really terrible for people to live in. And when we remove the people from these houses, one of the individuals removed was just a little child who was just an innocent little child living in terrible conditions. And it just kind of shows you that when somebody steals a property, a lot of people can be hurt. But out of this, something very interesting happened. Something really good happened. The chief judge of Broward County is fantastic. His name is Jack Tudor. And when he read the Sun Sentinel article about the people using the court system to steal these properties, he called me and he goes, Marty, I want to get together to figure out how we can stop this from happening in the future. So we had a meeting with myself, the sheriff's office. We also had a meeting we also brought in the state attorney's office and others. And we said to him, Chief Judge, we have the criminal stuff down. We know exactly how to find these people and to hold them accountable. But our big problem is trying to get these properties back to the victims in a quick way that doesn't cost these victims a whole lot of money. That's where we really need help, because right now the process is really long. And he said, you know what, Marty, here's what I'm going to do. And he entered an order that expedited all of these cases to try to help out the victims as much as he possibly can. And recently, we actually had a matter where it really worked, and it's been working a lot. There was a 96-year-old lady who was being foreclosed on because she wasn't paying her association dues. And the association foreclosed on her. It was a rightful foreclosure. But what happens when a property is foreclosed on? All the liens, dues, property taxes, that all gets paid, and anything left over goes back to the previous owner. And in this situation, there was a guy that found out she was being foreclosed on, and he filed a fake deed on this property because he wanted to pretend he was the owner so he would get the actual proceeds and not the 95, 96-year-old lady that was owed it. We found out about this, let the chief judge know. He expedited the matter, made sure that the actual true homeowner got the money very quickly, and also he's now about to be held accountable for his alleged criminal actions. Those are just a few things. And the last thing I just want to quickly bring up, we also recently entered into an agreement with the medical examiner of Broward County. A lot of times people like to utilize the public records of the medical examiner to find out when people pass on, and especially if they have no heirs. And then they will utilize that information to try to steal their property. Now the medical examiner is going to be inputting into a special portal in our office any requests on people's property when they pass on and have no heirs. Also, they're going to be giving us the address of people that have passed on. So we have a little tickler in our system that if anybody files a deed on that, that's an ownership change, that we know to really doubly check that to make sure it's legitimate and people aren't trying to steal the property. With that said, I can go on and on forever. I just appreciate so much you hearing me out. I wanted to tell those stories because I hope everybody here signs up for our Owner Alert program. And also, I like to scream about this stuff from the rooftops, because I want everybody out there to know that if they're thinking about defrauding somebody out of their property in Broward County, don't do it, because we're going to work hard to make sure they serve a long time in prison. With that said, does anybody have any questions? And I'm sorry if I spoke
Marty,
too quick, too long, but I'm just excited to be
quite
here.
a few
Before
questions.
you get to questions,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm, Marty, what you said regarding the homestead and portability must be in the house and filed for homestead by December 31st of this year. You were
Perfect.
He
Excellent.
will.
Great.
He's gonna be in.
Awesome. That sounds great. I just wanted to double check, and thank you, Scotty, for doing that. Excellent.
Great.
Oh,
I'm
thanks
gonna
for
ask
Kelly.
you a few questions that people put in the
Sure.
chat. And you know what, Carol, if you're still on, why don't you unmute yourself and ask your question instead of me reading it? Carol, are you there? I mean, there's so many people. I'm going to read it for you. I'm a realtor, and my client discovered fraud on a quitclaim deed while filing probate to be able to sell the property. It was determined to be a fraud by the fraud unit homeowner. Now the investigator going to vacation and will not complete the report for several weeks. My client has waited 4 months for this and needed this report as soon as possible, as she needs to fly to fight the wrong person from obtaining the prices of the piece of her family property, is there anything that can be done?
So I'm wondering, I doubt they've used our office for this. I wonder if they called the police department. I'm not quite sure. Because I can't think of anything in our office where we would say, well, we're not going to be completed for 4 months, things of that nature. So I guess my best guidance is this, is if I think you said that the nice lady's name is Carol.
Yeah,
If Carol
Carol.
wants to, great. If Carol wants to email me, she can kind of email me the specifics. I'll send it to our crimes against property team and they'll follow up on it. Here's the thing, what I always tell everybody, we have the best law enforcement in Broward County, in the sheriff's office and in our cities. And as you know, they are dealing with lots of issues. They deal with murders and robberies, and there's a whole lot going on. Our office, we deal with one type of crime, and that is title fraud. And that's why it's so great to work with law enforcement, because we really build these cases so we can make it as easy as possible to work with law enforcement and to prosecute these people. So what I would definitely suggest to Carol is please email me. I'll send it to our crimes against property team, and they can kind of find a status of it, where it's at, and possibly open up their own investigation as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Carol, I'm gonna give you the information from Marty's office so you can reach out to them. That will be wonderful. Okay, another question. Jody, if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your question, or you want me to read it? Jody, can you unmute? Okay. I just closed on a property that had the homestead exemption. I was told that the taxes were increased significantly as compared to the previous owner account. Is there anything I can do to reduce the taxes currently, or do I need to wait until 1 of 2024 as I will be residing in the property?
So I'd have to look at the specific property. Here's the issue with that. An appraisal is an opinion of value. And and we just basically try to find the best value for that property, so people only pay their fair share of property taxes. And what may work for one property may not work for another based on the law and the facts. So if somebody purchased a property this year, they would likely be paying, they're going to pay whatever likely paying whatever the previous owner was going to pay on November 1st. So let's say, for example, the previous owner was homesteaded for a long time. And they lived on the property on January 1st of 2023. Their November tax bill will reflect whatever they were supposed to pay. And that's generally what the new homeowner is going to pay. And it's probably going to be like prorated, I would guess, you know what I mean? Like for the time that they have the property. Then what happens is next year is when we really consider, under the law, the first time you really own the property for tax purposes. So January 1st, 2024, we are then going to reset the property to market value, probably based on the purchase price, which we will determine whether or not it's an arm's length transaction. And then what'll happen is we'll apply portability, any tax exemption they're entitled to, and then the November tax bill is likely going to be mostly substantially higher than the year before. And so what I always tell everybody, right, as soon as you own the property, just contact our office. Let us look at that specific property. Maybe there's a way we can help for this year. Maybe we can't, but we can actually, as long as you're the owner of the property, we can work on any property till September 18th of this year to see if there's a way to bring it down. And then next year, when we're going to use your purchase price, there are things people can show us. Sometimes people can show us that they overpaid for the property. My best example is I remember there was a father, I don't remember which city it was, it's a few years ago. There's a father that wanted so badly to move into the property next to his daughter. He just wanted to do it. She had a single family home and he wanted to buy this property next door, and he way overpaid for that property. And his sale price wasn't justified by everything else. So he was actually able to come in and let us know that this is why I overpaid, and we're able to see the other data showing that he did. And so we're actually able to significantly bring down the value that he was paying tax on. There's a lot that we can do. So please use us as a resource. Email me. Let me go through this specific property. And if there's something we can do, we absolutely will. And we'll really give a lot of guidance as to how you can move forward. I hope that answers the question, Racheli.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to print the chat, so I'll be able to refer to it and then send to you for people to reach out.
Oh,
Another
great.
one by Esther. Esther, if you would like to unmute yourself and ask the question, or do you want me to call it out? Okay. Does portability applies, and how? If the person moves to another property he owns previously, and it will become their primary residence. If I understand correctly, they had a primary, probably sold it, and are moving back to a property they still own, but it was probably a rental property, and now it becomes their primary.
Oh, yes, you can absolutely do it. You can move portability anywhere you want. The key is you can only have one homestead per family unit, which is basically a married couple. So if you're homesteading on one property, and you have a rental property that used to be your homestead, let's say, for example, you can actually move your homestead from your current property back to the other property. You can always move your homestead as many times as you want. But the one thing that people have to remember, though, is once let's say, for example, you keep that other property that's no longer your homestead, as soon as you remove that off, that will get reset to market value. So the taxes are going to skyrocket on there, but then the other property is going to get it. So you can use it as many times as you want. You can bring it back. I'll give you an example. Just this doesn't have anything to do with that, but there was one of the luckiest people I know. They actually bought a home way back when in the 1970s, I believe, on the Intercoastal in Fort Lauderdale for, oh my gosh, for a very cheap amount. And they have one of those little homes there, and they've had it forever. It's been their homestead. And now, of course, property on the Intercoastal in Fort Lauderdale is worth a fortune. And what they wanted to do was knock down their home that was there and build a new home. And we ran a whole bunch of scenarios for them. And what they actually decided to do was on the property that they own, what they did was they knocked down the property. They then decided to relinquish their homestead exemption. They built the property within 3 tax years. And then we were able to reestablish their homestead there, and we ported the portability value back into it. So you can do it basically on any property. It just has to be moving your homestead to another homestead. I hope that answered the question, Esther. Great question.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is Ori. Ori, if you would like to unmute yourself, or am I reading your question? It seems like everybody.
Happy to.
Okay.
So, Marty, thank you for that. All that information. It's very exciting. It's like CSI. I didn't know that.
Thank you, Ori.
I have a quick, simple question for you. So I had this property that I bought without knowing that in the 1940s it was a gas station and therefore contaminated. And I've been dealing with the state for years in order for them to clean it. The cost of the cleanup is actually more than what I paid for it. So meanwhile, I've been dealing with them. And last year, they, out of the blue, doubled the value of that property. Okay. I tried to convince them otherwise, but I was not successful. Is there anything that can be done?
Yes. And Ori, is that in Broward County?
Yes.
It is. And so you contacted our office and said, listen, this is the problem with this property. Yes, I think that. And is it your home, or is it a commercial
vacant
property?
land?
Vacant land. Okay. You know what? What I can do is I'd like to take a look at that. We can still actually look at it this year until September 18th. Can I ask a big favor? Would you mind emailing me specifically? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have our staff take a look at it again, because if it can be shown that there are, vacant land in Broward County is selling for a fortune. But if there's land that's contaminated, it can't be utilized like others, for example, because of what it is. There are things that we can actually use to bring down that value, because that differentiates it from other vacant land that is, well, from what it's selling for, because it wouldn't command the same type of sales price. So if I would love it if you would be able to, you could email me and the address and a synopsis of it, and I'll make that a priority. I'll send that to the folks in our office without a doubt to look at it. They can definitely look at it. Would you be able to do that today, or
absolutely
to look out for it?
I will do it right now.
Awesome. As soon as that comes over, I'm going to get it over.
For Marty and the office with you guys, and you'll be able to send it, and hopefully we can save somebody. So that's worth everything that we did for that call. Yes.
Absolutely. No, thank you, Ori, for bringing that up. At the end of the day,
in like 5 minutes. So let me read to you the question. Is there a cap on assessment value of a property which is not homesteaded?
Great question. There is. There's what's called the 10% cap under the Constitution. That basically means that every year after you own a property of non-homesteaded property, so every property that's not homesteaded, any other property, whether it's commercial property or residential property where it's not your homestead, the value you're taxed on can't go up more than 10% except for the school portion of the tax bill, which has an unlimited, there's no cap. And unfortunately, though, the school portion of your tax bill is the biggest taxing authority. So what will occur is, let's say, for example, your property value has went up 30% this year. All taxing authorities, the municipality, the county commission, the hospital district, even though your market value goes up 30%, the assessed value is capped at 10%, but the school portion of the tax bill will go up the full 30%, but it can still save people a lot of money in their property taxes. Now, what I always like to tell people as well is be very, very careful with the 10% cap. And I'll tell you why. Because any change of ownership potentially could trigger a reassessment to the entire thing. A good example, let's say you own a property and it's a rental property. And let's say that rental property is in your name and you've owned it for some time, just you personally, you've owned it for some time, let's say for 10 years. So you've had the benefit of that cap, meaning your market value is much higher than your assessed value. Let's say now you decide that you want to protect yourself and you want to put the property into a limited liability company in case somebody gets hurt or you're sued. What will happen is that would be a change of ownership. And then what could occur, all that value you don't pay tax on goes away and it gets reset to market value, and your taxes will go way up. And that's why I always tell everybody on any issue, whether it's non-homesteaded property, changing the deed, fraud, whatever it is, use our office as a resource. Let us know, what's going on, and we'll just, give you information so that you can make the best decision possible as to what's best for you and your family, and what you like best for yourself financially. I hope that helps. Great question.
Ever you change title,
yeah,
please ask. I'm a divorce mortgage planner, and when there is a divorce and there is a family home that is moving from a couple to one of the persons, but if they do it in a way that just quitclaim deeding and one was not on the title before, this can get messy. But if your office can understand what's going on and why we do what we do, you can help.
Oh, yes, absolutely. In our office, like I said, I'm an elected official, and the 200 and some odd people that work in our office are all public servants. And so we've been tasked by the people of Broward County to provide them information to try to help them. And so I always tell everybody, we really want to help everybody. Just let us know the issue. We'll go through it with you and just kind of give you good guidance. A good example is, and it's kind of along those lines for Kelly, but a lot of times people don't know what happens to their portability value if they get divorced, and they don't know what's going to happen. Who gets the value to be able to transfer? And it all depends. A good example is, let's say, for example, people get divorced and one person maintains the home. Let's just say the wife keeps the home. All that value they don't pay taxes on, that stays with the property. So the wife gets to retain that. However, if they decide to sell the property, then they can actually split that value between the two of them so they can port that on their new homesteads each one. There's all kinds of different things, all kinds of different scenarios, and we just want to be there to help people and provide guidance to them.
And we
thank you, Racheli.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do all counties have the fraud alerts?
That is such a fantastic question. It will actually very soon, because what happened was, which I'm very happy about, is last year, the Florida legislature passed a fantastic law. They basically said that title fraud is a big deal in Florida, and people should be able to have the opportunity to be notified if anybody is filing a deed on their property changing ownership. And so they actually passed a law last year that required all clerk's offices and property appraisers who have it required us to actually have a program, and that is honestly almost identical to ours, which I love. And what we've been trying to do, because my program's been in existence, and we already have all the technology, we've been working with other counties to provide it to them so they don't have to spend a lot of tax dollars to actually build it, because we've already created it. And it's actually been really good too, especially with fiscally constrained counties and counties that really don't have the type of budget that we do in our larger counties. And so we've been really trying to help everybody. And so I think by next year, they're all supposed to be up and running, where every county will actually have a notification program that you can get just like this, ours.
That is amazing. I'm going to let the other people in the other parts of the country. I knew that it was only Broward for now, but you were the guinea pig, but you were a good guinea pig, and we're getting Good things.
Oh, thank you,
Uh,
and Racheli. And actually, if I could also mention, there is one other neighboring county right now that also has now a property alert program. My best friend, I have a couple best friends, but one of my best friends is who I think is the one of the best elected officials I've ever met in my life. His name is Joe Abruzzo, and he's the clerk of court for Palm Beach County, and he actually has a program similar to ours when it comes to getting an email notification. He calls it Property Alert. So anybody can sign up in Palm Beach County. In Miami-Dade, they don't yet have their electronic notification system up and running, but they're going to have to pursuant to state law very, very soon. But
Very
thank you,
good.
Racheli.
That's great. One last question, because I know you need to get going.
Oh, thank you.
The previous owner lived in the property for 20 years. I was told that the taxes doubled as compared to his property. Please send me your contact. Okay, I'm gonna send you the contact information,
Sure.
Judy. That is great. And one question to ask you, because I deal with a lot of investors. Sometimes they get a deal. They go and buy a package of properties. Let's say 2 duplexes, 3 threeplexes, whatever.
Yes.
When they buy it under one contract for the 3 properties or the 2 properties together. Unfortunately, when it was recorded as if each one of them was the price of the contract.
I understand.
How do we
So
alleviate that?
Sure, no, and that's such a great question, Racheli. So for our purpose is generally we find that the purchase price of a property is the best indicator of what its value is. Now, in a situation like that, let's say people buy 3 properties at once, all in the same contract. Most likely the data we have from other sales, let's say, for example, in that building or near there, would show that's probably an outlier sale. Because if you have a property that's sold for a third of the price as those properties, we would probably take that sale and just disqualify it, most likely. Because we would think that doesn't justify what all these other data is showing us. Conversely, if it's property that changes hand for $10, that's also a sale we would disqualify as well. But what I always tell everybody is, let's say though we decide to put on the tax roll the full value of the contract price per unit, and so now it's a big number. Anybody that has done that can come and meet with our office. They can sit down with me and they can just show us, okay, Marty, look, I know that you guys valued my property this way, but this is wrong because we actually bought all 3 properties for this amount, so you're way off. And then we'll look at it and be like, okay, you're right, and we'll be able to reduce it down. Another example where that happens sometimes, and especially in higher end properties, people will pay a lot of money for a property because they're buying all the furnishings and everything inside. So you have the structure, then you have all the stuff in there. And what they can do is they sit down with our office and they actually show us the contract that actually shows, okay, look, this is the amount of, this is the things that has nothing to do with the real property. It is like the chairs and the dining table, all these different things. And we're able to actually back that out to get to another value that would usually bring it down. So that's another one of those things I always tell everybody. If you have any concerns with the value that we have on there and you think it's incorrect, come and meet with us. We want to go through it with you because we really just want to make sure we get the correct value. And in a situation like that, if we actually took and we applied the full purchase price of 3 units to 1 unit, that would be something we would want to sit down with you to look at, because you would be paying way too much in taxes. That wouldn't be your fair share of value. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, great. I'm going to tell this
Definitely.
person to just come to the office, talk to the team
Yes.
over there and sort it out.
And Racheli, they need to do it by September 18th of this year. So September 18th is our drop dead deadline under the law that we can work on it for this year. They can also file a petition with the Value Adjustment Board, which is a $15 petition. They can easily go online. That's a separate institution that settles disputes between the property appraiser and the petitioner. But what can happen is if they do file a petition, we can actually work on these properties after September 18th. But it's definitely just vital that they come and they email me or come here before September 18th so we can see if we can remedy the situation.
Excellent. So if you can wrap it up with 1, 2,
Yes.
3 things, what do they need to do to come to your office or to file something to say, okay, I don't think that this value is correct?
So there are so many things that you can do. The first thing people can always do is email me. If they email me, I answer my emails all day, every day. I'm so
does.
easy to find. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so easy to find. If you just go on our website at bcpa.net, there's an email Marty, and people can put that in there. And as soon as they do that, I'll answer it or I'll send it over to our staff and they'll contact with them. They can go through it together. People can also schedule, they can come downtown if they want, but it's never easy for people to come downtown Fort Lauderdale on a Monday to Friday during working hours. So they can actually schedule if they want a virtual visit on there by just going to our website, where you can actually talk to people just like this and they'll go through your property that way. They can also call on the phone and talk to our customer service people. And they can also, if they want, go to one of our mobile exemption education team meetings. So basically our outreach team is called our MEET team, our mobile exemption education team. We basically take our office to the public every single day. They go to about 1,000 events a year. They bring their computers with them and they sit down with people and they work on their property or apply exemptions. They can actually see where they're meeting by going to our website at bcpa.net, go to our event calendar, and they can actually figure out where they're going to be and go and meet with them. And that's a way to do it. So there's all kinds of ways to do it, but the best way is just email me and I will take care of it. That's which is the grace. I
One
hope that
last
answered the question.
That's
Of
on the
course.
top of everybody's mind.
Yes.
What can we do in Broward County to lower our taxes? They are
Great question.
skyrocketing and people are like, what is going on?
Very good question. So they can do a couple things. The first is, again, we don't set the tax rates in our office, but we do deal with the value. And if anybody's concerned about their value, talk to us about it. If we can bring down that value, it could bring down their taxes. Also, there are lots of exemptions under the law, like I said, for homestead, seniors, veterans, and others. Maybe you're not getting an exemption that you're entitled to. That'll bring down your property taxes as well. And you can file by September 18th. The other portion of it deals with something separate from our office, but it's the tax rates set by local governments. And what's very important is right now, every single taxing authority, the county commission, the school board, all the different cities, they are now having their budget hearings. And all their budget hearings are listed on your trim notice. If you go to our website at bcpa.net, you can click on the trim notice and you can see when your local government is discussing that. And right now they're trying to decide what tax rate they're going to be setting. I know the county commission has had they were talking the other day about their proposed tax rate in their first budget hearing. And they want to hear from the public, because if they reduce their tax rate, that could also reduce your taxes. And they want to know what you think. In some situations, people may say, I think my tax rate's just fine. I know the money is being used for important things. Or they may say, I think that based on property values increasing, you can actually roll that back your tax rate, and that would be important as well. So it's really important that people contact their local elected officials right now that have the authority to set these new rates and let them know their thoughts. And that's the best way to reduce your property taxes.
And with that, thank you so much. And Michael is saying, Marty, you're a rock star, and you are.
Oh, thank you, Michael. You all are so awesome. And I just appreciate so much you having me on. I have to tell you, like I said before, I absolutely love talking to people in the real estate industry. And Racheli, just you inviting me on is so fantastic, because I said before, there's so much our office can do, but the difficulty is getting everybody and helping people I can't reach on my own. And people in the real estate community are basically our windows to the world. We get to help so many people that way. So please keep sending people our way. We'd love to help everybody we can. And Ori, as soon as you send me the email, I'm going to check my thing. I will get it right over to our staff. We'll take a look at it. And Ori, and the other thing too, I just wanted to let you know, it's kind of the same thing. So we'll take a look at it. And if there's something that we can do, we absolutely will. But there's also the value adjustment board process for you as well, if you like. So if our staff comes back and says, we really took a look at it, but we can't find any data that can help us bring it down, it's just a $15 fee. And basically a special magistrate will determine whether or not it could be brought down. And there are a lot of times when they do that. And actually, I think it's fantastic, because really trying to find the true value of the property. That also, if we can't do anything, and I don't know if maybe we can, maybe we can't, that might be another route you might want to go through as well. But you'd have to file that by September 18th. Definitely.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So what is your email, or is Racheli going to share with us?
I'll share it with you right now in the chat.
Awesome. And I'll tell you where I'm actually going right now. Thank you all so much for letting me jump off. So my oldest, I have two daughters. One is 14, one's 11. My 14-year-old just started high school. And what I do is I drop her off in the morning and I pick her up every day. Then I come back to work. But it is, I've loved it because the first time I've ever been able to do it. My wife's a teacher. And so my kids have gone to her school all the way till 8th grade. But now has been my first time to basically do this with my oldest daughter. And I found it to be the best time for us to kind of just talk and bond. And I actually look forward to it every day. The only time she wasn't happy about it was the first day I dropped her off at school. I dropped her off there. She was all nervous. It's high school. There's a whole bunch of kids she's about to meet. And I rolled down the window and I go, I love you so much, honey bunch. Have a great day. And she was mortified. And she told me that night, never do that again. But I'm actually on my way right now. I'm going to go pick her up. But thank you all so much for having me. Y'all are awesome. Thank you, Racheli. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Oh, thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Marty.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much, Marty.
Racheli.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Oh,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Thank you, Heli.
Bye-bye.
And I wanna get this chat going and I'm gonna. Oh, you got it in the chat. I'm not closing the conversation.
I did not. I was trying to, but it popped for 2 seconds and then disappeared. So I don't know how
I'm
to.
gonna do it again over here. So this will be the last text. Go ahead and see it. You see
Oh,
it?
perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Let me take a picture. That'll be it.
There is
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Want to see how do there is a way to, let me just take the recording off. We don't need to record anymore.